What happens when the NFL's biggest superstar suddenly gets pulled into a storm surrounding the league's fastest-rising quarterback? A resurfaced comment from Patrick Mahomes is now going viral just as Shedeur Sanders grabs massive headlines, leaving fans asking one question: did Mahomes accidentally ignite the NFL's next big rivalry? In today's NFL, the benchmark for quarterback greatness is almost always tied to one name: Patrick Mahomes. Since becoming the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, Mahomes hasn't just played the position at an elite level. He has completely redefined what fans expect from a modern NFL quarterback. From the moment he took over as the Chiefs starter in 2018, Mahomes exploded onto the scene with one of the most remarkable seasons the league had ever seen. Throwing for over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in his first year as a starter, he instantly established himself as a generational talent. That season also earned him the NFL's Most Valuable Player award and signaled the beginning of a new era in Kansas City. But Mahomes didn't stop there. Over the next few seasons, he continued stacking accomplishments that most quarterbacks spend entire careers chasing. Super Bowl appearances, playoff comebacks, and highlight reel plays became routine. Under his leadership, the Chiefs transformed into one of the most dominant teams in football, consistently competing for championships and redefining offensive creativity in the league. What makes Mahomes particularly unique is just his statistics. It's the way he plays the game. His ability to throw from unconventional angles, extend plays under pressure, and deliver clutch performances in critical moments has made him one of the most exciting players to watch in sports. Fans have seen him escape collapsing pockets, launch impossible passes across the field, and deliver game-winning drives when the stakes were highest. Because of this, Mahomes has become more than just a star quarterback. He's become the standard that every young signal caller entering the league is measured against. Whether it's their arm strength, leadership ability, football IQ, or composure under pressure, comparisons to Mahomes have become unavoidable for rising quarterbacks. This level of dominance naturally brings confidence as well. Mahomes has built a reputation for being extremely competitive and driven, someone who takes pride in maintaining the Chiefs' position at the top of the NFL hierarchy. For a player who has achieved so much in such a short amount of time, that mindset makes perfect sense. Champions protect their territory. And that's where things get interesting. Because whenever a new quarterback begins generating massive hype or attracting national attention, the conversation inevitably circles back to Mahomes. Fans, analysts, and media personalities immediately begin asking the same question: can this new star reach the level that Mahomes has already set? Recently, that exact conversation has started surrounding one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in football today, Shedeur Sanders. And when Mahomes made a comment about young quarterbacks needing to prove themselves first, many fans believed the message was directed straight at Sanders, sparking a debate that quickly spread across NFL media. As one of the most respected quarterbacks in the league, every public comment from Patrick Mahomes tends to carry significant weight. Whether he's discussing the future of the NFL, evaluating young talent, or reflecting on his own experiences, fans and analysts often examine his words closely. Recently, one particular comment sparked a surprising amount of debate across the football world. During a media session, Mahomes was asked about the new wave of young quarterbacks gaining attention through college football and social media. In his response, he emphasized something that many veteran players have said before: hype and talent are important, but success in the NFL ultimately comes down to proving yourself on the field. Mahomes explained that every young quarterback entering the spotlight eventually faces the same challenge: translating potential into consistent performance against the best defenses in the world. On the surface, the statement seemed like a standard answer from a veteran quarterback who understands how difficult it is to succeed in professional football. However, the timing of the comment quickly caught the attention of fans online. Around the same period, one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in football was continuing to generate headlines: Shedeur Sanders. Sanders had already become a major figure in college football, thanks to his performances with the Colorado Buffaloes football and his growing national profile. As the son of Hall of Fame legend Deion Sanders, he was already a recognizable name, but his on-field play and confident personality had pushed him even further into the spotlight. Highlights from his games, interviews, and social media moments were constantly circulating across sports media platforms. Because Sanders was receiving so much attention at the time, many fans began connecting Mahomes' comment to the rising quarterback. Social media posts and sports debate shows quickly started discussing whether the statement was indirectly aimed at Sanders or simply a general observation about the pressures young players face when entering the league. It's important to note that Mahomes never mentioned Sanders directly in his remarks. His comments were framed broadly and could easily apply to any young quarterback entering the professional spotlight. Still, in the modern sports media environment, even vague statements can quickly turn into viral talking points once fans begin drawing their own conclusions. Within hours, clips of the interview began circulating online, with fans debating the meaning behind Mahomes' words. Some viewers interpreted the comment as harmless veteran advice, while others believed it reflected a subtle challenge to the hype surrounding emerging stars. Regardless of the interpretation, the moment demonstrated just how closely the football world watches its biggest figures. When a player as influential as Mahomes speaks about the next generation of quarterbacks, people listen, and sometimes they read far more into those words than originally intended. Long before any debate involving Patrick Mahomes started circulating online, Shedeur Sanders had already become one of the most talked-about young quarterbacks in football. His rise wasn't just about statistics or highlight plays. It was about the unique mix of talent, personality, and visibility that made him stand out in a crowded college football landscape. A big part of Sanders' attention came from his connection to his father, legendary NFL cornerback and current college football coach Shedeur Sanders. Known worldwide for his charisma and confidence, Shedeur built an enormous following both during his playing career and later as a coach. When he became the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes football, the entire program instantly became one of the most watched teams in college football. Naturally, that spotlight extended directly to Shedeur. However, the younger Sanders didn't earn attention simply because of his last name. On the field, he consistently showed traits that scouts and analysts look for in future NFL quarterbacks. His ability to read defenses, maintain composure under pressure, and deliver accurate passes in crucial moments made him a legitimate prospect in the eyes of many evaluators. During his time with Colorado, Sanders displayed strong leadership qualities as well. Teammates often praised his calm approach in high-pressure situations, while coaches highlighted his work ethic and football intelligence. Even in games where the team faced adversity, Sanders frequently showed resilience and determination that impressed observers across the college football world. Another reason Sanders generated so much buzz was his presence beyond the field. In today's sports environment, athletes are no longer judged solely by their performance during games. Personality, media presence, and connection with fans have become major factors in shaping an athlete's overall influence. Sanders embraced that modern reality extremely well. Through interviews, social media appearances, and national broadcasts, he developed a confident and composed public image. His style, confidence, and willingness to speak openly about his goals helped him build a strong personal brand while still playing at the college level. This combination of on-field ability and off-field visibility made Sanders a frequent topic of conversation among sports analysts. Some believed he had the tools to eventually become an elite NFL quarterback. Others wondered whether the attention surrounding him was moving faster than his actual development as a player. Regardless of where people stood in that debate, one thing was undeniable. Shedeur Sanders had become one of the most recognizable young quarterbacks in football. Because of that rising profile, any conversation about the future of NFL quarterbacks naturally started to include his name. And when discussions about young talent intersect with established superstars like Mahomes, the result is often a narrative that captures the attention of the entire football world. That growing spotlight would soon lead to even bigger headlines, ones that pushed Sanders' name far beyond normal college football conversations. Just as debates about young quarterbacks and rising NFL prospects were heating up, a new storyline suddenly pushed Shedeur Sanders into an even bigger spotlight. This time, however, the conversation wasn't only about football performance, it was about the rapidly expanding business side of global sports. Reports and speculation began circulating in sports media about the growing influence of international investment groups in American sports. One organization that had already made major waves across the sports industry was the powerful Saudi sovereign wealth fund known as the Public Investment Fund. The fund had already captured worldwide attention through massive investments across multiple sports leagues. One of its most well-known projects was the launch and expansion of LIV Golf, which dramatically changed the professional golf landscape by offering enormous contracts to top players and creating a rival league to traditional golf tour. That move signaled that global investors were becoming increasingly interested in reshaping major sports industries. Because of those previous investments, any rumors connecting rising athletes to international sports investors quickly become major headlines. In this case, discussions began circulating online suggesting that Sanders' growing brand power could make him an attractive figure for future global sports partnerships or international marketing opportunities. While many of these discussions were speculative and not officially confirmed, the mere possibility sparked intense conversation among sports fans and analysts. The reasoning behind the speculation was simple. Sanders represented a new type of athlete, one who combined football talent with a strong personal brand, social media presence, and cultural influence. In today's sports business environment, those qualities can sometimes be just as valuable as performance statistics. Athletes who generate attention beyond their sport often attract interest from brands, investors, and international organizations looking to expand their influence in global markets. Because Sanders was already drawing massive media attention during his college career, some observers believed his long-term potential could extend far beyond the football field. Sports business analysts began discussing how the modern athlete is evolving into something closer to a global entertainment figure. In that environment, quarterbacks with charisma, media presence, and strong leadership images can become powerful marketing assets for leagues, brands, and international investors. Of course, it's important to emphasize that much of the discussion surrounding Sanders and international investment interest remained speculation within sports media circles. No official agreement or confirmed partnership involving Sanders and the Saudi fund had been announced. However, the conversation itself revealed something important about the changing nature of sports. Football stars today are no longer viewed solely as athletes competing on the field. They are also brands, influencers, and global ambassadors capable of attracting attention from powerful business groups around the world. For Sanders, the attention surrounding these rumors only amplified his already growing reputation as one of the most talked-about young quarterbacks in football. And as those headlines continued to circulate, fans suddenly remembered something else: the earlier comments from Patrick Mahomes about young quarterbacks needing to prove themselves first. That connection would soon send the entire debate into overdrive. In today's sports world, nothing ever truly disappears. Interviews, press conferences, and even small offhand comments are recorded, clipped, and stored across countless platforms. And sometimes, when the timing is right, the internet brings those moments back in a way no one expected. That's exactly what happened when fans suddenly rediscovered an old clip of Patrick Mahomes. As headlines surrounding Shedeur Sanders continued spreading across sports media, fans began digging through past interviews and media sessions involving the Kansas City superstar. Eventually, someone reposted a clip from Mahomes discussing young quarterbacks and the pressure that comes with early hype. The moment might have passed quietly months earlier, but now the context around it had completely changed. Within hours, the clip started circulating rapidly across social media platforms. Football fans on discussion forums, sports pages, and video channels began sharing the moment with new captions and interpretations. Some viewers claimed the comment felt like a subtle warning to rising players, while others argued it was simply a veteran quarterback explaining how difficult success in the NFL really is. The reason the clip gained so much attention was the timing. Sanders had recently become one of the most talked-about young quarterbacks in football, and his rapid rise was generating debates across sports shows, podcasts, and online communities. Because of that growing buzz, many fans immediately connected Mahomes' previous comments to the new headlines surrounding Sanders. Soon, major sports discussion pages began highlighting the clip as well. Comment sections filled with fans offering their own interpretations. Some believed Mahomes was simply protecting the competitive standard he had helped establish in the league. Others believed the moment illustrated how the next generation of quarterbacks was beginning to challenge the dominance of current stars. As the debate spread, sports podcasts and independent analysts began discussing the resurfaced clip. Some hosts argued that veteran players often speak generally about young athletes without targeting anyone specifically. Others suggested that the modern media environment makes it almost impossible for a rising star to avoid comparisons with established superstars. Despite the growing speculation, it remained important to remember one key detail: Mahomes had never directly mentioned Sanders in the original interview. The connection existed primarily in the minds of fans who were trying to interpret the situation through the lens of current headlines. Still, the moment demonstrated something powerful about the modern sports media cycle. A single comment, made months earlier in a routine interview, could suddenly return and become a central topic of discussion once the right storyline emerged. The debate also highlighted how quickly narratives can evolve in the NFL. One day, a young quarterback might simply be building momentum in college football. The next day, his name is being compared to some of the biggest stars in the professional game. For Sanders, the resurfaced clip added another layer to the conversation surrounding his rise. For Mahomes, it showed how closely every word from a superstar quarterback is monitored by fans and media alike. And just as the online debate began reaching its peak, reporters finally had a chance to ask Mahomes directly about the situation, leading to a response that many fans didn't expect. As the online debate continued growing, it didn't take long before reporters finally brought the topic directly to Patrick Mahomes himself. With the resurfaced clip spreading rapidly across sports media and fans debating whether the comments were aimed at Shedeur Sanders, journalists naturally wanted clarification from the Kansas City superstar. When asked about the viral discussion, Mahomes approached the situation with the same calm professionalism that has defined much of his career. Rather than escalating the speculation, he chose his words carefully and made it clear that his earlier comments were never directed at any specific player. Mahomes explained that when veteran quarterbacks talk about the challenges facing young players, they are usually speaking from personal experience rather than criticizing anyone individually. Entering the NFL as a quarterback is one of the most difficult transitions in professional sports. Even the most talented college stars must adjust to faster defenses, more complex playbooks, and the constant pressure of performing at the highest level every week. For Mahomes, those lessons were something he understood very well from his own early years in the league with the Kansas City Chiefs. Although he eventually became one of the most dominant quarterbacks in modern football, his development still required patience, coaching, and time to master the professional game. Because of that background, Mahomes emphasized that his earlier comments were meant as general advice rather than criticism. Young quarterbacks, especially those receiving major media attention, will always face enormous expectations. According to Mahomes, the most important step for any rising player is focusing on consistent improvement and letting performance speak louder than outside hype. He also acknowledged that the spotlight surrounding modern athletes is very different from what previous generations experienced. Social media, national broadcasts, and constant online discussion mean that young players are often thrust into global conversations long before they even reach the professional level. In Mahomes' view, that environment makes it even more important for young quarterbacks to stay grounded and focused on their development. Media attention can come and go quickly, but long-term success in the NFL depends on preparation, leadership, and the ability to perform under pressure. Importantly, Mahomes also showed respect for the talent emerging from the next generation of quarterbacks. While he didn't speak specifically about Sanders, he made it clear that the future of football is filled with exciting young players who have the ability to push the game forward. Many fans appreciated the way Mahomes handled the situation. Instead of fueling rivalry narratives or criticizing a younger athlete, he redirected the conversation toward the realities of professional competition and the discipline required to succeed at the highest level. His response also reflected a broader leadership role that many superstar players eventually take on. As one of the faces of the league, Mahomes understands that his words influence not only fans but also younger athletes who look up to him. By addressing the topic calmly and respectfully, he effectively cooled down a debate that had started spiraling across social media. Still, even after Mahomes clarified his comments, the conversation surrounding Sanders' rise and the future of NFL quarterbacks didn't disappear. If anything, it highlighted a bigger question that many football fans were beginning to ask. Could the league soon be entering a new era where rising stars like Shedeur Sanders challenge the dominance of established superstars? While the sports media world debated the resurfaced comments from Patrick Mahomes, many fans were waiting to see how Shedeur Sanders would react. In today's social media era, athletes often respond quickly when their names start trending in major debates. A single tweet, interview, or podcast appearance can instantly shift the direction of the conversation. But in this case, Sanders took a noticeably different approach. Instead of directly addressing the viral clips or joining the online debate, Sanders remained largely focused on football and his own development. There were no public statements attacking Mahomes, no social media posts responding to the speculation, and no attempts to escalate the narrative that fans and commentators were building around the situation. For many observers, that silence actually spoke volumes. Sanders has grown up around the professional sports world thanks to his father, legendary NFL icon Deion Sanders. Throughout his career, Deion became known not only for his incredible athletic ability, but also for his understanding of media attention and public narratives. He spent decades navigating headlines, interviews, and the intense spotlight that follows superstar athletes. Because of that upbringing, many analysts believe Shedeur has developed a strong awareness of how quickly sports narratives can spiral out of control. Engaging directly in every online debate often fuels the story rather than ending it. By staying quiet, Sanders avoided adding new material for commentators to analyze. At the same time, Sanders' focus remained clearly centered on his performance and preparation. As the starting quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes football, his primary responsibility was leading his team and continuing to refine his skills as a quarterback. The pressure of performing at the college level is already intense, and the additional noise from social media debates can easily become a distraction. Teammates and coaches have often described Sanders as someone who prefers letting his play speak for itself. While he carries a confident personality and strong public presence, he also understands that the most important evaluations of his future will ultimately come from what he does on the field. For young quarterbacks with NFL aspirations, maintaining focus during media storms is an important part of professional growth. Scouts and executives often pay close attention not only to physical talent, but also to how players handle pressure, criticism, and public scrutiny. In that sense, Sanders' decision to stay out of the debate may have reflected a level of maturity that impressed many observers. Meanwhile, fans continued debating the situation online. Some supporters argued that Sanders had already shown enough talent to deserve the hype surrounding him. Others believed that comparisons with established superstars like Mahomes were premature until Sanders eventually reached the NFL. But regardless of those opinions, one thing became clear: Sanders' name had firmly entered the broader national football conversation. The combination of his performance, personality, and growing media attention meant that every new development in his career would likely be watched closely by both fans and analysts. And as the football world looked ahead to future seasons and potential NFL drafts, the idea of Sanders eventually competing against the league's top quarterbacks began to feel less like speculation and more like a realistic possibility. For now, though, Sanders appeared content allowing the conversation to play out without direct involvement. Instead of responding to every headline, he kept his attention where it mattered most, preparing for the next challenge on the field. Because in football, debates and viral clips may dominate the headlines for a few days, but performance is what ultimately shapes a player's legacy. And if Sanders continues progressing at the pace many analysts expect, the real answer to all the speculation might eventually come not through interviews or social media, but through the games themselves. At first glance, the entire situation might seem like just another short-lived sports debate. A resurfaced interview clip from Patrick Mahomes, rising hype around Shedeur Sanders, and a wave of social media discussion that quickly captured fans' attention. But when you look deeper, the story actually reflects something much bigger about the future direction of professional football. The National Football League has always been a league driven by star power, and quarterbacks sit at the center of that spotlight. For decades, the league's identity has been shaped by dominant quarterbacks who define entire eras of football. In past generations, players like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning set the standard for excellence, leadership, and consistency. As the league transitioned into a new era, that spotlight naturally shifted to Mahomes. Since becoming the face of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, he has redefined what modern quarterback play can look like, combining creativity, mobility, and elite arm talent. His success has set an incredibly high bar for the next generation of players entering the league. This is where the discussion around Sanders becomes interesting. While Sanders is still developing at the college level with the Colorado Buffaloes football, his growing profile represents the emergence of the NFL's next wave of potential stars. Every few years, football fans begin searching for the quarterbacks who might eventually replace the current legends as the league's dominant figures. That transition from one generation to another is a natural part of sports history. When Brady and Manning dominated the league, younger quarterbacks were constantly compared to them. Later, when Mahomes began his rise, analysts debated whether he could eventually reach the same legendary status. Now the cycle continues again as rising players like Sanders begin entering the national spotlight. The attention surrounding Sanders also reflects another major shift happening within sports: the growing importance of personal branding and global visibility. Today's athletes operate in an environment that looks very different from the past. Social media platforms, streaming broadcasts, and international marketing opportunities allow players to build massive audiences long before they even reach professional leagues. As a result, rising stars often develop large fan bases during their college careers. Sanders represents this new type of athlete particularly well. Along with his on-field performance, his public image, confidence, and strong media presence have made him a recognizable figure across the football world. That combination makes him a natural topic of discussion whenever analysts talk about the future of the sport. The story also highlights how quickly narratives can form in modern sports media. A single resurfaced interview clip can suddenly connect two athletes who are at very different stages of their careers. Mahomes is already a Super Bowl champion and one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in the league, while Sanders is still building his path toward the professional level. Yet because fans are always searching for the next big star, comparisons and debates appear almost instantly. In many ways, this conversation shows how passionate football fans are about the future of the league. Supporters want to know who will lead the next generation of teams, who will dominate the biggest games, and which young players might eventually challenge the established superstars. These discussions help keep the excitement of the NFL alive year after year. For the league itself, that constant cycle of emerging talent is incredibly important. As veteran stars age or retire, new personalities must step forward to capture the imagination of fans and maintain the league's popularity. Whether Sanders ultimately becomes one of those future superstars remains to be seen. The journey from college standout to NFL franchise quarterback is extremely difficult, and many talented players face unexpected challenges along the way. But the attention surrounding his name shows that fans are already looking toward the next era of football. And if Sanders continues progressing at his current pace, it's possible that today's debates could eventually turn into tomorrow's on-field matchups, where rising quarterbacks try to challenge the dominance of established legends like Patrick Mahomes. At the center of this entire conversation are two quarterbacks at very different stages of their football journeys: Patrick Mahomes and Shedeur Sanders. One is already firmly established as one of the most dominant players in the National Football League, while the other is a rising talent still carving out his path toward the professional level. That contrast is exactly what makes the storyline so fascinating for fans. Mahomes has spent years building a legacy through championships, leadership, and spectacular performances with the Kansas City Chiefs. His creativity on the field and ability to perform under pressure have helped redefine the modern quarterback position. Because of that success, any comments he makes about young players or the challenges of entering the league naturally attract significant attention. Sanders, on the other hand, represents the excitement and uncertainty of football's next generation. As the quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes football, he has already shown flashes of the confidence, arm talent, and leadership that scouts often look for in future NFL prospects. His growing popularity, combined with the influence of his father, legendary athlete Deion Sanders, has placed him under a spotlight that few college players experience. When those two worlds, an established superstar and a rising prospect, become connected through a resurfaced interview clip and online speculation, it creates a perfect storm for sports media discussions. But beyond the headlines and viral posts, the situation also reveals something deeper about the nature of professional sports. Football history has always been defined by generational transitions. As one group of legendary players dominates the league, fans and analysts inevitably begin searching for the next wave of talent that could eventually challenge them. These transitions are rarely smooth or predictable, and the conversations surrounding them often begin long before the younger players even reach the professional stage. That is exactly what appears to be happening here. The attention surrounding Sanders doesn't necessarily mean he will become the next dominant NFL quarterback. The path from college success to professional stardom is filled with challenges, stronger competition, more complex defensive schemes, and the enormous pressure of leading an NFL franchise. Many talented college quarterbacks have entered the league with tremendous hype, only to discover how difficult the transition can be. At the same time, some players rise to the challenge and eventually redefine the sport. Mahomes himself is a perfect example of that journey. When he first entered the league, there were questions about whether his unconventional style would translate to the professional level. Over time, however, he proved that creativity and confidence could thrive in the NFL, ultimately becoming one of the most exciting quarterbacks the league has ever seen. Because of that history, fans naturally wonder whether the next generation might produce another player capable of changing the game. For now, though, Sanders' story is still being written. Every game he plays, every season he leads his team, and every challenge he faces will contribute to shaping his future. Scouts, analysts, and fans will continue watching closely to see how his skills develop and whether he can maintain the momentum that has already brought him national attention. Meanwhile, Mahomes will likely remain one of the league's central figures for years to come. His leadership, consistency, and ability to perform in the biggest moments have secured his place among the NFL's elite quarterbacks. If Sanders eventually reaches the professional level and succeeds, the idea of these two players sharing the same league could create one of the most intriguing generational storylines in football. But until that moment arrives, much of the conversation will remain speculation fueled by fan excitement and media narratives. For now, the resurfaced interview clip, the social media debates, and the growing attention surrounding Sanders serve as reminders of how quickly football stories can evolve. And in a league where the next superstar is always just one breakout season away, the narrative surrounding Shedeur Sanders and Patrick Mahomes may only be at its very beginning.